ChatGPT is adding erotica capabilities. This is not a drill.
Nope. And verified adults might be drilling GPT-5 by Christmas.
Christmas is about to get spicy in here.
However, some other OpenAI features have come early.
Hey, I see what you did there, Kevin. Sora 2 has now opened up a storyboard feature in longer generations, and I guess it's okay?
Okay, we will unpack that glowing recommendation. Plus, Google updated their VO video model. We're talking 3.1. It allows users to extend scenes and add old men to anything.
And early testers are saying that Gemini 3.0 is incredibly capable. Plus, Google might have developed a new cancer treatment with AI.
Wait, I'm sorry. Did AI actually do something good, Gavin?
Yes, Kevin. You were just too busy writing hot dog erotica to notice.
It's gonna get so much better in December.
Draw me like one of your French dogs, Jack.
And Anduril unveiled their Eagle Eye system. We talked about it before, but the videos look insane. This is the future of warfare, at least while humans are still fighting it.
Kevin, I'm not worried about Terminators. I am more worried about Bob Barker coming back from the grave and punching me in the face.
I'm sorry, but you lose. You lose real big.
This is AI for Humans, everybody. Welcome, everybody, to AI for Humans. This is your weekly guide to what's happening in the world of AI. And Kevin, this week we have some crazy things happening. First and foremost, something is that I like to call this the shot heard round the world.
Oh.
Sam Altman has
What
said
kind of
that
shot, Gavin?
Yeah, I wasn't going to get into that, but you can keep going and imagine. Sam Altman himself has said that they are now going to loosen restrictions and let adults be adults on ChatGPT. And OpenAI will allow erotica. And Kevin,
if you haven't seen the clip, it's great. He takes a massive drag off a menthol in the corner of a hotel room, and he's in that very special chair and just says, "Let the adults be adults, baby."
I agree. We should have like Boogie Night sort of outputs from Sora for this. But the funny thing about this to me was, so first of all, like this comes from a post where he basically said, look, we have figured out that like we're better about understanding how to put parental guidance on ChatGPT. Yeah. We feel like we can loosen up a little bit for people.
Hold on, I gotta make all these noises.
Okay, go ahead.
This was on the heels of solving like mental health issues with ChatGPT, right?
Yes.
Like so, like the thing that blows my mind about this post, and I'm genuinely sorry to interrupt you here, Gavin, because you were driving to actual information, but that the 1-2 punch is it starts with, you know, we at OpenAI, we've taken this mental health thing seriously. We believe we've finally established our guardrails. So now you can put your in ChatGPT.
Hey, we're bleeping that part. We can't say that out loud. But hey, here's the thing. Their freedoms are good for people to explore stuff.
Yes.
The other part of this is they are going to be bringing back some version of the 4.0 personality, which we have also heard a lot about. Yeah. And let me just tell you, there are people that are very mad about this idea for a couple reasons. One, a lot of people are continuing this conversation of like, hey, OpenAI is supposed to be getting us to AGI and they're getting us now to erotica. Mark Cuban himself came out, who has been a Sora 2 promoter. We talked about this last week. Mark Cuban came out and said that this could be a very bad thing for kids and everybody else when they get their hands on it. The thing I think it's important for people to understand about this is I actually think it's not the worst thing to let people use ChatGPT as they want to use it. And I think that there won't be that many people making erotica. I mean, sure, there might be some out there, but like, it's okay to have better guardrails on this. And the other thing to remember is, Sam has said this before, but also I believe this, it does not mean the entire company is pivoting towards erotica, right? This is a massive company now. We just saw Sora 2 come out, which is a separate entity within OpenAI. Like this is a whole team that works only on Sora 2. There is a massive amount of people who are working on the state-of-the-art models. I'm sure whatever the next model is. We've talked about how it's beaten all these competition records. This feels to me a little bit like the narrative of like how people see ChatGPT and how everybody is on it. And that way, when you see a headline like this, you think, oh my God, I can't believe this. I don't know. Do you think this feels overblown?
I thought the timing of the announcement and the specific mention of erotica as one of the things was odd. I mean, Sam had to even come out recently. When did he do it? It was less than 24 hours ago as of this recording. He came out and said, all right, my tweet blew up on the erotica point much more than I thought it was going to. Dude, you said erotica, like, and we know that, you know, XAI is over here with waifu bots that will riz you up in ways that made you blush when I showed you, Gavin, like right off the rip. So it's not hard to imagine that is a market sector that they may be going after, right? Or at least relaxing things enough so that if people want that experience, they can have it. We'll see if it makes its way into apps. I don't know, but I side with you on the let people use the models the way they want. I understand like Mark Cuban's objections to this when it comes to like children and teens, but I'm also on the parental responsibility side of things as well. So if OpenAI says it's for verified adults and your child or teen has an account where they're a verified adult, it's not a failing on OpenAI. It's a problem. Yes, it's a problem. But like at some point, it's not Sam Altman's problem, right?
Yes, and I think that's what he's trying to get across, right? Like he's not they're not trying to be the moral police. I think the bigger question here is it's a tool that is in 800 million people's hands weekly, right? And right now it is a chat interface. So
going to be a lot more tools in people's hands, if you know what I'm talking about, Gavin. You ever thought about that one for a second?
Yes, I have thought about that one now. Anyway, I think this is one of those things that like, it is about the size of what ChatGPT is, and I think it's one of those.
It's so easy to do. It's so easy. It's so you can't finish your thought.
Let's pull back.
Oh yeah, let's pull out of it. No, okay, all right.
Let's talk about another big announcement they made this week, which was an update to Sora 2. Bill Peebles, Mr. Peebs himself, has come out and said that there are 2 new features they just dropped. Sora 2 Pro users can now generate up to 25 seconds in one go with the storyboard feature. So this is a little bit like Google Flow's feature, which allows you to create multiple scenes in one generation. They are also letting Sora 2 non-pro users get 15-second outputs instead of 10. And this is cool. I have to say, like, it's always cool to see a company like this kind of like immediately kind of try to improve the product. The other kind of side note is supposedly, Gabriel, I can't remember what his last name is, but the guy that works at OpenAI said they're going to have less content blocks soon. Yeah. So we'll see how that works. I spent some time with this, Kev, and, you know, it's interesting. The things that they've shared have always been, you know, kind of picked out and interesting in some forms. I actually just signed up for GPT Pro to try this because we have not been on Pro before. I gave them $200 to the machine. And I want to say, it was okay. If you have a second,
you just dropped $200 on something, and you seemed underwhelmed. Like, just
well, okay. There's 2 parts of this. Let's talk about the 2 parts. First of all, we talked about this briefly last week. If you're on Pro, you can get better results in general for the 10-second clips, and those are improvements. I've seen those improvements, and it's much better in general. I wouldn't say like it's like the difference between, you know, like Sora 1 and Sora 2, but it does give you better outputs. It's the additional time in creating the additional scenes that is kind of an issue. If you go into our drive, so if you remember a while back, I created this video for I think it was VO3 with an orc on a city sidewalk, like kind of like on a bench with a pigeon. I used that as my driving image, and I created 4 separate scenes. And just so you know, before we watch this, the 4 scenes that I created were the orc basically looks at the pigeon and says like something like, I got to get up out of here. He jumps out of this scene. He's supposed to land on a cab that is moving, crunch the cab down, turn to the cab driver and say something like, get us out of here. And at the end, I gave it a voiceover to do a scroll that talks about us. So play this clip and let's see what it looked like.
It might be time for me to go. Uptown. Good sir.
Okay.
No humans or orcs were harmed in this video. Also, don't blame OpenAI for this. You can blame Kevin and Gavin. Goodbye for now.
Okay, so for people who are just listening, explain what you just saw, and then maybe explain some of the things that are a little funky about it video-wise.
I mean, yeah, okay. So started off very strong. It looked like a Blizzard cinematic of an orc on a park bench who kind of leaps into frame and then onto a taxi cab. And if you're just watching it like I was in the first go and not pausing it, you don't realize that there's other destroyed wonky vehicles in the background of this scene. So it looks like this wasn't the first take. There are other crushed vehicles around. And then the camera sort of pans about and moves around. And then you realize there's like a weird Jeep taxi cab hybrid. Yeah. Like it looks like it's a Rubicon edition of a Ford Navigator. Then he leaps onto a second taxi cab. There's a weird Mad Max a weird Mad Max vehicle in the background. and then you get a scroll which is made up of 16 languages and some hieroglyphics.
So this is what I wanted to try it, one-shot output. I didn't make a second one of these. I just wanted to give it a go to see what it was like. And, again, like it got the scene changes basically, but each one of these scenes, I would say, is much less interesting to me than if I had generated them individually and tried to kind of move it along. And I just think it goes to show you, like, this is like early software, right? Like, we are not in anywhere sort of sense where this happens. I think the thing at the end was the most interesting thing to me is like, that shouldn't be that hard in some ways to create a scroll. Obviously, it got the words right when it was hearing the voiceover. And by the way, I gave this pretty significant prompts. These are prompts that were pretty significant on their own, but it does have this like garbled kind of gibberish thing that felt like an old school like output from an AI image model.
Yeah.
All of this stuff just points out, like, yes, we should always be careful. And Kevin's good to remind me that this is like, we're at the very edge of where this stuff is happening. This was a one-shot prompt for 25 seconds of AI video, and it's interesting, right? It's not there yet, but it is interesting.
The 25-second mark is the most intriguing one because now you're talking like a traditional commercial spot. So if you can truly prompt an almost 30-second spot with a one shot, that is very impactful. And you could throw $1,000 at the machine and get a bunch of ads. Let it write the script. Let it direct the scene. And if 10 of those are usable, that's amazing. That's incredible. The storyboard feature was one that I really wanted to get my hands on and haven't had time yet because, OpenAI was touting, I think, this feature as something that they're using in their motion picture that they're doing. Like, this is one of their internal tools. And I go like, oh, wow, amazing. I can, in my head, I would go and describe my scene, right? Or give it my script. It would generate the frames for the storyboard. I could regenerate those easily, give some notes, and then I hit the button and it just makes it. And you're shaking your head no, Gavin, because you can't believe that I thought about how great this tool is going to be. And that's how it works, right?
That is not what we got, right? I will say, like, we talked about that last week. We showed off that video that was a custom created storyboard for their Critters movie. That is not what this is. What this is, and we'll show a little bit of it here, is there's a shot. You basically multiple boxes. You get to write your prompts per scene, and then you can actually associate how many seconds you want that scene to be. So you have a total of 25 if you want, and you can say the first shot is 4 seconds, the second shot is this, second shot is this. Each one is its own prompt, and then you kind of send it away to go generate. Long story short is, like, we'll probably get to a place where this makes sense. But the thing I think that's tricky here is the consistency between them right now. You're much better off like generating individual scenes and kind of stitching them together yourself if you know some editing things. I do want to very quickly, before we move on from Sora, there's a really interesting shot of last week's Open. So if you remember last week's Open, if you watched us, Kevin and I were in chairs and we took off up above into the rockets, and it doesn't look amazing. This version of it, at least halfway through, is much better. This is from Sora Pro. So if you want to play that here, you can kind of get a sense of it. This is using your and my cameos as an example.
Ready? It's AI for humans! Hold on! Woo!
Great. Okay.
So what was
a pair of detached
ending, right?
legs just slams down onto the
So what was cool about this is much better than last week. You see our faces are much clearer. You see the rockets go up much clearer. We kind of get stuck in the roof, which is kind of funny, right? But then it cuts to the 2 chairs empty and then like a weird pair of legs. So the first 7 or 6 seconds of that is much better than what we created last week. And then there's kind of this weird extra thing. Whereas last week it sent us further out and into the moon. Yeah. All of just goes back to like the kind of slot machine sort of style of this. It is way better. It is state of the art, and we're going to get to VO3 in a second and talk about how it's better than VO3 still, I believe, but 3.1. But it is still AI video, and there is still funkiness. You're still going to have to pull the lever a bunch of times to get what you want.
Totally anecdotal, but the amount of videos I've been receiving from friends asking, wait, is this AI, has gone through the roof. And like there was a slow trickle, and I'm assuming that as more Sora invites get released and more people get onboarded to the platform and more people go, hey, I could take this and grind Instagram Reels or TikToks with it. I don't know if you're receiving this, Gavin, but there's like a new trend it's a weird one of like animals having some bowel issues, let's say, and human beings. I'm dead serious.
I saw the elephant one. Is that you sent that to me, right?
No, I didn't. I didn't. There's
you
an
didn't send me the elephant one.
No,
Did you see the elephant one? It was crazy.
I'm sure it's very similar. There's a camel one with two influencers in a convertible. There's another
that's
one
the one I saw. Yeah.
There's another one with horses at like a central park, and like it's very clear that there is like, oh, this is a prompt that is working. It's jarring. It's believable enough that people go, oh, whoa, wait, is that? And now that there's watermark removers, I even receive videos from people that they're not senior citizens. Let me flag that because a lot of my friends are.
Sure.
I received a video from someone going like, is this fake? And there was a glimpse of the Sora watermark in it at one point. And it's just like, the lane is now flooded. And I really do think like this wasn't one of our stories, but Alexis Ohanian recently made some headlines because he was saying dead internet theory is basically here, meaning that you and I are real. We know each other, but we have to assume all the comments beneath our video player and anybody outside of our dear patrons, thank you, is probably a robot. Like he's now saying that's the case. I'm fully there with video now. Like when I see a video, the first thing I do is assume that it's not real. And then if I care to know if it is real, I'll go a little further.
Sure. I guess that there's a slight difference there in that the video was still created by somebody as of right now, right? There's not like a lot of bots out there that are creating these videos on their own.
I've seen a lot of N8 end grind set hooks that will just generate video. So, I mean, there is a possibility that it's a lot of bots generating media. That could be real.
Yeah. No, that's for sure. We should keep going here really quickly. Speaking of OpenAI, they are showing pretty incredible growth in revenue. There's a chart showing how quickly that they're growing from Epic AI versus other companies of the past. But at the same time, Kevin, there's a very interesting story that's going around, and we're going to get to like how OpenAI compares to Google in just a second, that OpenAI is burning through money faster than ever before. And one of the things we talked about last week and we continue to talk about is how OpenAI productizes their stuff. And productizing meaning how much money they get people to pay. Obviously, we just paid another $200 to the machine this week. But I think that their big question over the next like 6 months to a year is going to be, how do we turn the corner from losing upwards of $20 billion a year right now? When you think about how much money that is, that's massive. And how do we turn it into a money-making business? And the promise of this has always been, hey, we'll do new science or we'll create new products that people will want to use and pay extra for. And yes, we talked about agents last week and the new agent kit situation and how people might pay for more, but we should turn briefly now to Google, which is doing actual new science and is kind of a big deal. Sundar Pichai just came out and said this, an exciting milestone for AI and science, our C2S scale 27 billion foundation model built with Yale and based on Gemma, that's one of their smaller models, generated a novel hypothesis about cancer cellular behavior, which scientists experimentally validated in living cells. So Kev, this is, from Google at least, AI doing real new science, which is very, very exciting for us as people.
Yeah. There was a lot there. I announced that the internet as you know it is likely dead and you cannot trust it. And Gavin immediately leapt into earnings for OpenAI. So that's a new normal. And now AI is crushing science, which is a dear bright spot of the future, the light at the end of the tunnel, which was the brilliant sunshine and not the headlights of a Mack truck hitting us all. It's doing it, and this is the early stages of that. So they basically created a model that could understand the way single cell organisms react, and they have this immune context neutral phase and this immune context positive phase, because some tumors in the human body, they will trigger an autoimmune response, and that's good because then the body will attack it. Others hang out and don't trigger that response, but are still very active. I'm distilling this in a very, very terrible
Dr.
way.
Pereira, I feel
no,
like
I'm doing
you've leveled up.
A really terrible job of distilling this, but I read it and reread it and totally understood it in the moment, and now I'm like, let the AI do this. This is, I mean, you want to talk about rizzing up ChatGPT? I got you all day. You want to talk about this groundbreaking science? I'll leave it to the pros, but this is the promise of the future.
Yeah, and long story short, what I wanted to kind of show here is that OpenAI, there's been a lot of conversation around like getting productized and doing stuff and need to make money. Google is kind of at the same point of doing VO 3.1s. They're also working on these things and tangentially showing actual new science. There's also a story that DeepMind is working using AI to help bring fusion to reality. So when we talk about this idea of like AI driving actual things that will be impactful for human beings, I just think Google's feels like they're ahead of the game a little bit right now. And again, just from a money standpoint, to the money point real fast, Google has a business like Meta that prints dollars for now, so they can actually afford to put all this money into science, whereas OpenAI is going to have to turn the corner at some point.
Again, I like, we've been doing this podcast for a while, and some people are very supportive, and that's great. Other people's are like, you're celebrating AI slop. How dare you? Yeah. There's deforestation. We're using all the drinking water, and what are we getting? Like Bob Barker and Stephen Hawking in an MMA match videos. And I'm like, yes, and they are entertaining. Yes. But this is the other side that is much harder to explain, that tends to move slower, and that when the results happen, like the results here could be groundbreaking cancer treatment, right? Taking this cold tumor and turning it hot with this previously undiscovered thing. That's amazing. But when it happens, it's not as shareable. It's not as visually impactful. Yes. It's not as memeable. It's a white paper and a dense model that could be incredibly beneficial to each and every one of us right now receiving this message, but it doesn't get the attention.
Doesn't get erotica
deserves.
Headlines. It doesn't get erotica headlines.
It sure doesn't, Gavin.
That's the funniest thing about all this, which I think is important to know, is you always, as a person in the news today, have to be very clear about the stuff that's being delivered to you is being delivered in part because they believe you will read it and they believe you will click on it. And it is much harder for them to get erotica as a word when it is associated with a CEO of a $500 billion company. That is almost like instant click. Cancer treatment from AI may not be as much. So before we move on to some other amazing stuff that Google is doing, including Gemini 3.0 and VO 3.1, we have to ask you at home to be a friend of ours, Kevin. Be a friend and actually like and subscribe this video. We do this show every week. We have a lot of fun doing it. We are also doing 1,000 other things, including our startup And Then, which is actually going very well. We're in the middle of a bunch of conversations, but you are here and you are our friend. So like and subscribe and then share to somebody else.
Honk in the comments if you're an algo clown. Where are my algo clowns at? The algo's been weird, Gavin. It's been rough these days. Weird. Not just for us, but for like actually successful people on YouTube.
Yeah.
Everybody got a little gripe going on. Hey, algo clowns, big honk to you. We've tried juicing it. I think, what did we do last week? We punched it. I don't know. Big red shoes, big silly nose. Where are my algo clowns? Honk, because leaving a comment actually helps pop our video and get us noticed. So please do that. If you listen to it, only 5-star review on whatever platform you do. And sharing is caring. Like
sharing is caring.
We do not have the dollars to advertise for this podcast, so any growth we have is off the backs of your effort. So thank you again. Please make someone aware of this podcast and rant over honk.
Yeah, I keep getting really cool messages from people where they're like, hey, we watch you guys every week and we tell people to watch you because you help us understand what's going on. And like, that is the mission of what we're doing. So if that's you, first of all, thank you. But second of all, get that person you shared it to share it to somebody else so we can keep getting to new people as well. All right. Moving on to more Google stuff. So Kev, there's a very exciting thing. I know you're excited about this. I saw some of this as well. It is a kind of rumored out there, but I think people are confirming it. Gemini 3.0 has been having some incredible outputs from these Ella Marina type of situations. It is not available for people to use, but some of these outputs are really big. The rumor around this is that it is a big step up from Gemini 2.5 and maybe even from GPT-5. So like, let's talk through some of the stuff you saw here and what makes it interesting.
Yeah, it looks like it. So the first mention of Gemini 3.0 Pro was spotted within Gemini. Someone noticed it within a developer console. The rumors, as of our recording, which is October 16th in the afternoonish, October 22nd, this thing might actually be released, but I'll digress. The early results, as people get served up this model in these arenas that you're mentioning, where it puts models head to head, you give it the same prompt, and a human being rates the output, it is night and day what this model is capable of doing if these early rumors are true. If you're watching the video of this podcast, you'll see on your screen some examples. I cherry-picked a couple gaming ones, Gavin. These are one-shot prompts for making full clones of games where the model is sourcing or generating graphics, sound, inventory management, scoring, movement controls, attack, defense, you name it. Things like Zelda or Binding of Isaac, there was a great example of, which was a 2-shot, meaning they had to give it a second prompt to add more features. They're making simulators for PlayStation 2.
Yeah, I saw that. Did you see the Wii one? There's
yes.
a whole Wii 2 simulator or whatever that is. Like no, not Wii 2. What is the new? Again, what is the name of the new?
The Switch 2. The Switch 2.
Sorry, the Switch 2. Yeah,
but I think
incredible.
I recall there was a Wii one as well. But basically they're saying, hey, not only make an emulator for the system, so it's emulating the looks of the controls and the console or the handheld itself, but it's generating the games that go inside of it. And granted, they all end up kind of looking like Atari games from back in the day, but like it's grokking the task. There was a Game Boy one that was really impressive where it's like a Game Boy Color, and when you actually fire it up with the power switch on top, it takes you into a selection screen. There's Tetris, Zelda, Pokemon. There was a Mario game.
I haven't seen this one yet, but that's nuts.
Yeah, it looked like Mario running about, and these are, again, one-shot prompts. Now, on the one hand, there's going to be some engineer out there. Well, first of all, there's going to be someone out there claiming this is all stolen. And
yes,
okay,
or fake,
yes,
or fake, right? Possibly.
It could be fake, but a lot of the folks that are doing this, Gavin, are making their prompts and the code that gets spat out available for review.
Yeah, okay.
So you can kind of go and sanity check. Now, granted, yes, they could be using Claude Code or GPT-5 Codex or something and trying to fake this, but that's a long way for a lot of people to go that have a semblance of a reputation in this space. So I'm choosing to believe, but I want to believe.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, it could be stolen valor. Fine. Yes, a lot of the code for these things might exist in other places, and it's cobbling together. Sure, I'll give you that. The fact that in one shot the model is able to understand the task, contextualize it, grab the assets in, make it work and interactable, make decisions for how you're going to navigate that app and get in and get out. Like this is a next level. This is like the next level.
And this to your point, like this is next level of coding, right? We will have to see when this comes out, like what else it can do really well, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a question of where we go from here. We have been saying for the last, 6 months to a year, kind of pre the Sora 2 announcement, which felt like it kind of leapfrogged VO3, that Google was in the driver's seat and that Gemini 2.5 Pro was very good. Yeah. This is 3.0 supposedly, and to Kevin's point, it may be coming in a week or so. So we're excited to follow up on that. There's another big update from Google, which is VO 3.1. This is a step change update to their text to video model, which has audio built in. And we've talked about VO 3 a bunch here, and now we're at 3.1. There's some cool updates to it. Like basically it's better with character consistency. It will keep your shot stronger. They actually have better textures. There's a really interesting video from the Google team themselves showing off the textures of like horse manes flowing and all sorts of stuff like this. And then Kev, there's a new Will Smith eating spaghetti video.
The benchmark. Kevin, do you want to describe it in detail for the audio only users?
Yeah,
do you want to?
This is, it's Demis Hassabis, by the way, shared this himself, which is always interesting. He called it the Turing test for AI video, which makes me laugh. This is Will Smith, like really enjoying a plate of spaghetti. And as somebody, Kevin and I both know this from people who have been watching this stuff forever.
I can't get enough of this.
This is magic. Yeah. He's saying, I can't get enough of this. We hear slurping. Long story short, it's very good. Also, you wouldn't be able to do this in Sora 2 because you can't upload pictures of real people. You can upload from a picture to start. There's many people who are playing around with this so far. I also spent some time with it, Kevin, and as I am wont to do, I took one take experiences to make sure we can give a sense of what it looks like. There are 2 clips using that same photo that I used for Sora 2 that are available and the exact same prompt that I used for the Sora 2 output. Only the first shot of the orc jumping off the bench onto a cab. Both of them are not amazing, I will say. And I think something that VO3 has struggled with is physics. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that Sora 2 did much better is physics. So if you look at both of these, they're kind of in slow motion at points and the physics of them are not amazing. You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. Did you hear that? Were you able to hear any of that? Okay.
What?
Sorry. I'm allergic to the bad physics in this VO video. No, it's not. It wasn't a bit. I don't know. I'm choking on something here. I'm going to go a step further and say these look bad. Now, the visual quality of the individual elements of the scene, yes. But you're underselling how bad the physics are in this.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where the cab kind of comes in, the orc kind of jumps, but it doesn't feel really connected to like jumping onto the cab. He kind of lands near the cab. Now he's on top of it, and the back of the cab becomes the front. What a weird warping. And now it's driving in a completely different direction. That is just a lack of coherence that I don't expect from a foundational video model now.
And those were in not the fast model, the regular model. I will also say, as a second side note for VO that kind of made me mad this week, I was subscribing to Google Ultra for 3 months so we could do these tests with VO3 when it first came out. And by the way, I will say, like, VO3 in general has been a great model, and this is first shot. I always want to show people what it likes first shot. Kevin, I had about 10,000, maybe even more, 12,000 credits that were kind of stored up that I was like expecting to use whenever they updated the model again, or when I wanted to go back and do a project. I did switch back from Ultra to Pro because I didn't want to pay the $250 a month that they were going to charge. It was a discount to start. I went in yesterday and my credits are back down to 1,000. So they basically took away 10,000 credits for me. And I just think that's a bad consumer sort of scenario. Like 11 Labs actually does a really good job of this. They kind of let you, your
rollover minutes from night and weekend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The old
but so anyway, that was
plans.
a bummer. That was a bummer to me. So each of those outputs cost 100 credits on VO 3.1 regular. So now I have 800 credits left. Again, we're always happy to see new models and you should see what people are making with it. But again, always keep people's like examples in the back of your head as like, they might've taken 10 to get to this. They might've taken 20 to get to this. You don't know for sure.
One of the things that I do want to point out, like, again, I think those two examples were tough. They were rough. If you pulled the slot machine handle 10 more times, maybe they would be amazing. But I mean, off of your one shots, a little underwhelming. They did show off the ability, though, to use flow, where you can use elements, which is always impactful, right?
Yes.
You can give a person or a character a setting and maybe like an item to either hold or interact with. So you can give it the individual elements. You can use start and end frames with it now, which is great for scene consistency and control. But they showed an example of a drone flying over like a football field, Gavin, and there was like a cow standing at the 50-yard line or whatever. They wind it back, they draw over a portion of the video, and they say, add an elderly man. Yeah. And then the same video sort of plays out. The drone comes down and you see the elderly person there just kind of standing there. And like that was really impactful.
Yes.
Like
that part's very cool. Yes.
I want to get my hands on that. I admittedly have not had a chance to play with that yet, but so many times when using these tools for promotional purposes or to make proof of concepts for things, you just want to tweak one element of a thing and you don't want to re-render the entire video around it. So that sounds pretty powerful.
Yeah, and that is like something that happened with Nano Banana, right? Like they opened the idea to basically, it's a much better layering system, it feels like, where you can kind of take specific things out and kind of manipulate them. So I will very much admit, like that is not something I had the time to try, but I will try it before we have our next show, or maybe some point talk about it in our newsletter as well.
OpenAI has some big announcements. Okay, Erotica on the horizon. That's great. Google, maybe curing cancer, giving us some new video tools. Poor Anthropic, nowhere to be found. This poor little.
Wait, there is somewhere to be found, Kevin. They just introduced 4.5 Haiku. That's right. That is their new small model. They have 4.5 Sonnet, and this is 4.5 Haiku. So this is very cheap. This is their small, tiny model. And Kev, the kind of interesting thing here is that benchmark-wise, it is almost as good as Sonnet 4.5 and compares pretty closely to GPT-5, which is a really interesting thing. So for all the coders out there, this might be your new driver. It's funny, I was just talking to people that are working with us on And I was saying, hey, I'm going to try to sign up for ChatGPT Pro to test a bunch of stuff. Does anybody on our team want to use GPT-5 Pro as a coding tool? And they're like, most of us are just Claude Code and we're happy with it. They own the coder world in a big way. And so this is a big step up to make sure that you don't burn through your credits as much. And maybe there's things you don't need the larger models for at some point.
One of the biggest things there is just double the speed. I mean, if you're looking at the capabilities of the model, yes, it's on par with some of the best, which is phenomenal considering it's the smaller model, but it's the speed. If you're not doing a massive architectural something that requires deep thinking, you've already got your plan in place. Now you just want to execute it. The fact that you can iterate, because again, slot machine pulls, sometimes it takes 3 or 4 tries with a model to vibe the code successfully. Well, now you can be literally twice as productive as you were before for a fraction of the price. So I think that's super exciting. And I want to use it to make AI slop in articles, Gavin, because as we've said, the internet is dead. Don't believe anything you read because it's probably written or created by a robot.
Well, this is a story that I wanted to touch on briefly, and it does point to your what earlier stage about the dead internet sort of theory, that there is a big article going around. I think this originally came from Axios, but the share of articles that are written by humans or generated by AI has now surpassed humans. It is about 52% to 48%. Which, if you're out there reading and you've seen a lot of stuff that feels similar, this is partly why. Yeah. I just wanted to point this out because, like, one of the things I have found, and I write the AI for Humans newsletter every week, and I find it really enjoyable to do. At the beginning stages when we talked about making a newsletter, you and I were always like, hey, how can we leverage AI to help write this? And how can we leverage AI to kind of make this into something that will make it really easy for us to do? Not that we didn't want to put out a good product, but that might be something interesting that we could start with an AI draft of some idea.
Yeah.
I have transitioned to fully writing by hand again. And when I'm not literally like scribing by candlelight with a feather, but like I type them all out myself. I don't really use AI for anything other than research, because what I have found is that if I use AI to generate drafts, or if I use it to do stuff, it doesn't come out like what I really want it to say. And then I'm kind of fighting the AI to kind of say something of importance, whereas I know what I want to say. I do think there's huge value, obviously, in AI writing for people that need the help or who want to get something across. But I think ultimately this is going to be a separator. I think people will have a sense in their heads of like what's AI written and what's not. And I think if you're out there working for a company or anywhere that's kind of like really leaning into like publishing a lot of AI writing that's only AI, I don't think that's going to end well eventually. That doesn't mean that you can't have a human assisted AI writing, but I think this is going to be something that like eventually will get called out very significantly.
Yeah, I mean, I still do a lot of creative writing and technical writing as well I mean, pretty much every day I have to do it. And,
sure.
You know, as a jumpstart, you know, as a get 60% of the way there, pretty good. Still requires a lot of cleanup and then a lot of creativity to make interesting. And that's like, there was another article, I don't know if you saw a couple weeks back, Gavin, that talked about the rise of like sort of AI slop in the workplace, and that people are just handing off and passing off things, and how it doesn't actually do the job. It kind of kicks the can, because eventually along the way, a human being has to touch it and make it real or make it better, or else your company is shipping, you know, C's basically. You know, you're shipping like a 60 or 70%. And what's happening is that people are starting to think less of certain coworkers that ship AI, right? That just ship it out. They're starting to scrutinize the formatting of things before they even read the content, which is also fascinating to me. But I'm guilty of that as well. I'll receive emails and I look for, not just for M dashes, but I look for like structure and emoji and bullet points and whatever, especially if I've already communicated with someone a handful of times in the past and you can see, wow, they're suddenly communicating dramatically different. Did they get hit on the head with a lead pipe that makes them love emojis and bullet points? Or is there something else going on here? And it just like, all of this adds up to, again, human in the loop being incredibly important and becoming more so. Like, use AI, leverage it, but do not remove yourself from the process, because the numbers have already been run. It is going to damage your relationships and your reputation.
And it's also, by the way, attention is the way everybody's going to be going forward. I mean, I think if we talk about the way AI is coming for many jobs, I think what's going to happen for a lot of people is they're going to be in the business of expressing themselves in some way. And when you express yourself truly and uniquely, that means you're doing you, right? Like, and that doesn't mean, again, you can't use AI, but like, that's what will separate you from other people in interesting ways. All right, let's move on to a different way of expressing AI, which is AI in the military. Anduril and Palmer Luckey have introduced something we have talked about in this show very much before.
But it is out.
This is Eagle Eye. Kev, do you want to jump in and tell people what this is?
Oh, listen, and I know, look, I know the
you sound like you're getting too excited about this. This is war,
dude, let me tell you about this stuff. This is like a Call of Duty add-on come to life, baby.
Which is kind of frightening. Which is
no, it really is. If you've ever played like a Tom Clancy game, like this is Splinter Cell, Ghost Recon times 10, because it's real. This is a military-grade helmet that provides protection for soldiers on the front line, or maybe the second line, whatever line you want to be on. You can wear the helmet, and it's packed with sensors and communications devices. And so basically the gist is, Gavin, if you're wearing one of these headsets and I'm also wearing one, you can tap in essentially to what I am seeing and have your real-time view, your goggles, augmented with my data or with data from a command center. And again, we talked about this before, but when you look at the videos, I'll tell you, I mean, obviously, I'm very excited for this. Like, this is like science fiction come true. You know, you want your team I'm not saying that the battle that you're fighting is the right one or the righteous one or anything else, but if someone's going to be out there, you want your team to have the best capabilities, right? You want your side, you want your side to be alive. And this, I don't even want to. No, because you know what I'm doing.
The moral quandaries are turning in front of your eyes.
It's not because like that is such like a nuanced discussion that someone's going to be like, someone's going to take a clip out of context and be like, look at how excited you're getting, and I hate that. It's disingenuous. That's disingenuous. So let me just talk about the tech here for a second, and then we can punt the morality discussion down the line, because that's not what this is. So you can augment your view with data that's enriched by other soldiers. So if you have line of sight on a target or something, I can have the wireframe of that pop up in my visor, so I can essentially see through objects. I can receive waypoints like you would in a video game if someone pings.
Very cool.
You know, epic loot. It's on your dynamic compass. There are cameras in the back of the headset, so you can have like a digital rear view mirror to see what's coming up behind you. There's some sort of control system, which they're showing, where you can use to like request for additional support or for something to be like, you know, detailed. There's a real-time mini map tracking you and the friendlies that it has visibility on. So it's like, it really is a video game heads-up display coming to life through a partnership from Anduril, Meta, Oakley for the optics, as well as I think it's Qualcomm for some of the comm chips. So even in a situation where like your Wi-Fi or your satellite connectivity gets knocked out, these things can still communicate with each other. And again, the warfare of it all makes a lot of people get upset. I get it. Let's take a step back and go, how great would this technology be for first responders? Like if you need to change...
for paintball, right? Imagine in a paintball game.
Yeah, for dog walkers. You know, you never know who's going to need this kind of military-grade tech.
Infrared. I can see my dog's butt warming up. Better get the poop bag ready.
Yes, deploy the bags. Deploy the bags now. Tactical scooping.
But yes,
change the gun in the videos to a fire hose, and suddenly being able to have infrared vision or get visibility on where someone might be trapped behind.
Absolutely.
It's super impactful. And so I don't want to pretend like there isn't a greater discussion to be had around this, but the discussion I'm hoping to have on this podcast with you is about how friggin' cool the technology is.
Yes, and it very much is. And by the way, the other side of this is like when the war begins with the Terminators, like we have to make sure that this is unhackable by the machines, because I think it would be good to be able to have a communication that's human only, but because it's AI derived and started, that might be a hard thing. Well, I don't know what the meat version of this will look like when we start to have to fight the machines in the long run. But
that's what I was
now,
say.
it's very cool.
It's laughable in a sense that it's like we're going to be upgrading human soldiers, and you go like, well, that's going to work for like a minute, but arguably we're already like at a point where we should not be developing anything for humans with the future of warfare. But I digress.
And fingers crossed, by the way, like we're entering a world. I know there's a lot of stuff happening in the world right now, especially with what's going on in Russia. But like, I really do hope that humans at some point can progress past this. Like, when I say this, I mean like war at large, and hopefully we'll come together. But you and I both know that there's conflicts across the board.
It's not going to happen before OpenAI allows Erotica in December.
Maybe that'll be the thing that solves.
That's what I think is going to bring us all together.
I think it'll be world peace. That's fantastic. All right, everybody, it's time to look at what you did with AI this week. It's AI. See what you did there.
Sun turns just rolling without a care. Then suddenly you stop and shout. AI, see what you did there. AI, see what you did there.
All right, Kev, there's a couple fun things this week. Matt Schumer, who, if you remember from a long back when, had a controversial moment in the AI space, but has continued to do interesting things, has been working on a new Sora 2 kind of mod that he created, which is like, he's calling it Interactive Sora 2. This is a piece of code you can download, but it's expensive to run, but it will allow you to generate new Sora clips based on where the last one took off. And it kind of looks like a video game. And it's just a cool way of playing with the Sora 2 API and seeing different things you can do now that you can put it into programming and not just through the Sora front end.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, you know, it's a cool tech demo. It does like some pre-baking of the possible paths you can do to try to make it seem like, because these Sora generations can sometimes take, 30 seconds, a minute. Yeah, depending upon the quality and the style. Like, so he's doing some back end work to render these things quicker. But Man, you and I have talked about how AI is going to disrupt future of game making and playing, and like this is just another example of that. I think like you can imagine the next Telltale game or whatever being powered by something like this, where truly whatever branch you want to take is completely different than any branch that someone else is taking. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, you know, the interesting thing when you say that, I always come back to the idea of like, well, people mostly want to play stories, and the Telltale thing that they always did so well was like figuring out that branching in some direction or another.
Yeah.
It is this interesting idea of like what games will look like in a true sandbox when you can kind of go anywhere and do anything, like how much people actually want that. There will be like an amazing AI Gary's mod that I can't wait to get my hands on in a couple years. But for right now, it's a very cool thing.
It'll also only cost the price of an Xbox to play it for 10 minutes, which is also very cool.
Maybe in 2 years it'll be cheaper. Maybe it'll be 10 years it'll be cheaper.
Oh, I'm sure. I did put in this next story because I love a good robot something. Boston Dynamics has their Spot robot, which is often imitated, sometimes for much cheaper, but it is the 4-legged robot that moves about and has like a little claw, a little pincer on it that it can move about. But this is a post by It's Max X on X. So it's Max.
Ooh.
This is their work, I'm assuming. It says that we taught Spot to stack 15-kilogram tires autonomously. It uses its whole body and shows some dynamic manipulation. And when you watch the video of this thing struggle like me trying to get off the couch, but it is taking these fairly heavy tires, considering the size of the Spot, and nudging it and muscling it and reacting in real time to get this thing up on its side and move it into the goal, basically like the target area, and then stack another tire on top of it. It's you root for this thing until you imagine the near future where you're hiding under blankets and canned food in a post-apocalyptic supermarket, and this thing is hunting you down.
Turning over all the shelves as it comes to find you,
pulling them off and sniffing you out.
But it is very cool. What is cool about this, you're right, is to watch how it figures out to get the leverage on certain things. And this goes back to the fact that it's autonomous. It is doing this on its own. It's that reinforcement learning in the real world, trying to figure out how to manipulate stuff. Super cool and interesting. All right, there's one last thing. LK Campbell, who's one of our favorite Discord users. If you're not in our Discord, feel free join our Discord. We're in there often, and you can pop in there. Found a very cool way using Sora 2 of how to determine who is a content violation or not. And I will say, before we get into this, Kevin, one thing that's really interesting about this whole conversation is it does seem like if someone has passed away, they are not a content violation, which is a very interesting thing. So LK Campbell basically created a format in Sora 2 where he basically has a game show. And if you play the one, I made one here, just play this and you'll kind of see what it is.
10, 2025 and Liberace, come on down. You are not a content violation.
Did somebody order Sparkle?
Hello, darlings. Look at this legend, folks, straight from the...
So basically, it's a prompt where you give the date of the time, and then you say like a name of a celebrity, and they say, come on down. LK Campbell did a bunch of these, and it turned into one of those remixes. But one of the most fascinating things about this is you put in Bob Ross, you put in Fred Rogers, all the people that we have seen show up, and then all these other people, Abe Vigoda, I tried. But there does seem to be this interesting, weird thing, and I don't know, maybe there's a legal scenario with this for if a person has passed away or not, where they are not asking for permission ahead of time in some form.
Interesting. Do you think... Do you think in December, when OpenAI relaxes the guardrails on Erotica, Gavin, that Sora is going to get a similar treatment?
Well, you know, that's a really interesting thing that I was thinking about while we were talking about earlier in the show. I would argue probably not, but if you look at what Grok has been making, maybe that's where we're headed, because that worries me more than Erotica. The audience for Erotica is probably this big. The audience for video is much, much bigger. So like if we are suddenly entering into a world where like spicy content comes to Sora 2, we may be in trouble. But for now, Kevin, that is everything. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We really appreciate it. We will see you all next week.
Honk, honk.